Welcome to the Business in Canada presentation. In this video, we will briefly discuss political, economic, sociocultural, technological, environmental, and legal contexts in Canada in order to determine the attractiveness for investing and entering new market sites. Located just north of the United States, Canada covers most of the North American continent with an area larger than that of the U.S. Canada has an extremely varied topography, from mountains to different types of forest and even prairie grasslands. Canada is the second largest country on Earth, covering an area of 3.9 billion square miles. It consists of 13 provinces: Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, and Saskatchewan. In Canada, the population is 35.16 million people as compared to the 316.5 million that are in the United States. Although Canada is a much larger country, there are less people due to the fact that the weather conditions are much harsher in the northern part of the country, forcing people to live closer to the border of the United States. Throughout the 13 provinces, there are many factors that differ, such as language and religion. The official languages of Canada are English and French. English is spoken by over half the Canadian population, while French is spoken by over one-fourth of the population. In provinces such as Quebec, New Brunswick, and Ontario, the primary language is French, as compared to the other provinces where the primary language is English. The other languages are so small compared to the above.
Now we will refer to our Canadian interviewee. We asked Max, is it common for Canadians to speak more than one language?
I would say about half of Canadians speak a second language, either from their culture or French as it's our second language, mostly spoken in Quebec and the eastern provinces.
The majority of Canadians are Christians. Christians represent over half of Canada's population, followed by one-fifth of Canada's population, identifying as non-religious. Other religions practiced in Canada include Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. In Canada, there are 3 levels of government. Each level of government has different responsibilities. The federal government, for example, the Government of Canada, is responsible for things that affect the whole country, such as citizenship and immigration, national defense, and trade with other countries. The provincial and territorial governments, for example, the Province of Ontario, are responsible for such things as education, healthcare, and highways. Municipal and local governments, which include cities, towns, and villages in Ontario, are responsible for firefighting, city streets, and other local matters. If there is no local government, the province provides services. Canada has a reputation for a clean government, a judicial system with an impeccable record of independence and transparency, and vigorous prosecution of corrupt cases. Although 89% of Canada's land area is owned by the state, the 11% that is privately owned property is well protected. Enforcement of contracts is very secure, and expropriation is highly unusual. Protection of intellectual property rights meets world standards. As of 2013, Canada is ranked in the 84th percentile for political stability and absence of violence and terrorism, and in the 97th percentile for government effectiveness according to the Worldwide Governance Indicators Project.
Now let's ask a Canadian how they would react to a bribe. So Max, would Canadians act negatively to a bribe?
I think people would react very negatively to a bribe in Canada, particularly law enforcement. Most companies would have policies about this as well.
Economic freedom score is 78, making its economy the 6th freest in the 2015 index. Its overall score is 1.1 points lower than that last year, with modest improvements in monetary freedom and the control of government spending, outweighed by declines in labor freedom and freedom from corruption. Canada continues to be the freest economy in the North American region. Over the past 5 years, Canada's economic freedom score has declined by 1.7 points, highlighting a trend that has pushed the country into the mostly free category for the first time since 2007. Score declines have been spread over 5 of the 10 economic freedoms, with an increase in the level of perceived corruption contributing the most to the moderate slide in Canada's score. Nonetheless, Canada remains one of the world's most stable business climates and an attractive investment destination. With the world's second best property rights regime and openness to global commerce, Canada has a solid foundation of economic freedom. The financial sector is competitive, and its efficiency is supported by prudent lending practices and sound oversight. Canada's highly competitive regulatory framework promotes business formation and operation. With no minimum capital standards, starting a company requires only one procedure. Flexible labor regulations enhance employment and productivity growth. Canada has a market-oriented economy similar to that of the U.S. Besides having similar patterns of production and living standards, Canada also adopts a market-oriented economic system that combines private enterprise with government regulation. The Canadian economy differs from that of the U.S. because Canada focuses more on exporting goods than importing them.
Canada shipped $408.7 billion worth of products around the globe in 2015. That figure represents roughly 2.2% of overall global exports. Some of Canada's top exports include oil, vehicles, machines such as engines and pumps, gyms, electronic equipment, and several other products. Canada's top import partners include the United States, China, the United Kingdom, Japan, Mexico, and several others. In 2015, Canada bought $419.3 billion worth of imported goods. Some of Canada's top imports include vehicles, machinery, electronic equipment, oil, plastics, and many other things. Some of Canada's top export partners include the United States, China, United Kingdom, Japan, Mexico, India, and several other countries. In 2014, the level of foreign direct investment in Canada advanced from $40.3 billion to $732.3 billion. Direct investors from Asia and Oceania continued to add to their position in Canada in 2014, with their investment advancing from $7.9 billion to $85.9 billion. China was responsible for almost 60% of this growth. The manufacturing and mining sectors accounted for over half of the growth in stock of foreign direct investment in Canada in 2014. The foreign direct investment position in the Canadian manufacturing sector was up to $11.2 billion to $215.7 billion. The mining and oil and gas extraction sector gained $10.9 billion to $152 billion. Since 1999, these two sectors combined have accounted for roughly half of all foreign direct investments in Canada. In November 2014, tumbling energy prices took a big bite out of Canadian consumer prices, reversing the recent surge in inflation and sending the annual inflation rate down to 2%, matching its slowest pace in 8 months. In December 2015, consumer prices in Canada increased by 1.6% year-on-year, following a 1.4% growth in the previous month, while falling short and missing market expectations of 1.7%. It was the highest inflation rate recorded since November 2014, as costs of food and shelter continued to rise, while transport prices went up for the first time since October 2014. Canada, along with the U.S., was on track for an interest rate hike in 2015. A higher interest rate could sink more Canadians into bankruptcy and could cause a slowdown in the housing sector, which has propped up Canada's economy in the years since the recession. It would be the first since 2010, and consumers have continued to pile on debt loads, and this risk increases greatly with interest rates rising. A member of both the Organization for Economic Cooperation and the Group of Seven, Canada is considered one of the most stable economies in the world. Canada has the 11th largest economy in the world based on nominal gross domestic product. Although these facts stand true, the federal finance minister, Bill Morneau, claims that the Canadian economy is suffering from slower growth than originally projected by the former Conservative government. Morneau states that projections on growth since the 2015 budget have fallen due to oil prices that are less than half those of 2014. The minister said that there's hope that oil prices will improve, but as it stands, a decreasing tax base means his department is expecting a $15 billion per year reduction of GDP beginning this year. Canada has been building since the Great Recession, but 2015 also poses a unique set of challenges that could affect Canadians this year. Canada's macroeconomic instability is due to sinking commodity prices, including oil, mining, and housing. The decrease in the major sources of domestic economic growth result in a slowdown in investments. Every $1 is equivalent to 0.72 US dollars. According to the Big Mac Index, the cost of the Big Mac in Canada is $5.86, as compared to the United States, where the cost would be $4.80.
Next, we will discuss Canada's Human Development Indicators. In Canada, the life expectancy at birth is 82 years old. Also, 42% of adults between the ages of 16 and 65 have low literacy rates. 55% of working adults in Canada are estimated to have less than adequate health literacy skills. Shockingly, 88% of adults over the age of 65 appear to be in this situation. A 1% increase in the literacy rate would generate $18 billion in economic growth every year. When it comes to measuring a decent standard of living in Canada, the GNI per capita at PPP in 2014 was $43,360, which is the highest it has been. That number is continuously increasing. Compared to the United States, Canada's GNI per capita is much lower. The main differences between Canada and the United States, according to Hofstede's dimensions, are individualism and masculinity. In Canada, people look after themselves and their immediate families instead of looking after the entire group, which would be collectivism. For masculinity, Canadians focus on being driven by competition, achievement, and success, which means they are more masculine than feminine. The biggest differences for the Trompenars between Canada and the United States were internal versus external control and achieved versus ascribed status. Canada is more internally controlled, which means they believe they can determine what happens to them and control their future, versus the environment and their surroundings determining what happens to them. For achieved versus ascribed, Canada is achieved, which means they believe that they can achieve things based on their own actions and their own efforts put into it. In the 4 previously considered dimensions, the United States scored higher than Canada across the board. How does Canada protect its environment? In 1999, the Canadian government enacted the Canadian Environmental Protection Act, which is aimed at preventing pollution and protecting the environment and human health. The Act imposes timeframes for managing toxic substances, includes provisions to regulate vehicle, engine, and equipment emissions, and provides a wide range of tools to manage toxic substances, other pollutions, and wastes. This is just a few of the things that the Act imposes. Canada's legal system is based on the English and French systems. Explorers and colonists brought these systems to Canada in the 17th and 18th centuries. After the Battle of Quebec in 1759, the country fell under English common law except for Quebec, which follows civil law. Canada's legal system is based on a combination of common law and civil law. Canada's legal system also includes public law and private law. Public law covers what affects society as a whole. It includes criminal, constitutional, and administrative law. Private law covers relationships between individuals. It sets rules for contracts, property ownership, the rights and obligations of family members, damage to someone or to their party, etc. The Constitution, however, is the supreme law of the land. It defines the powers of the different levels and branches of the government. Now on to the SWOT analysis. One of Canada's biggest strengths is its proximity to the United States solely because Canada relies hugely on exporting goods, and the United States is one of its main partners. On the other hand, a huge weakness that Canada has is the fact that it's so heavily dependent on trading with the United States that if something were to happen between the two countries, it would affect Canada's economy in a very negative way. An opportunity for Canada would be to develop homegrown alternatives for energy, including wind energy and hydroelectricity. One thing that could be considered as a threat to Canada would be the tanking oil prices. The tanking prices are bad for Canada's oil sands, which is a major source of domestic economic growth.